That's a swag property, man. It just doesn't get any better.
The smallmouth here in Champlain is phenomenal.
Well, how you doing, guys? It is welcome back to another Pocono Outdoors Guy Weekend Roundup. We are here again, got a great show lined up for you guys. And look, we even got Josh back again here, holding him ransom before he heads back to Texas.
That's right.
But yeah, we've been doing a lot of fishing. Josh has been out catching fish. We'll talk about that in a second. But before we jump in all that, got to thank a few folks for helping us out here. I want to thank FinSeeker River Guide Service. Here's a new supporter of the Pocono Outdoors Guy. Premier guide on the Delaware River. Shad, largemouth, muskie, stripers, smallmouth, you name it. 7 days a week, full and half-day trips available. Be sure you guys call Tim Keebler, 215-262-4811, and book your trip now. And, of course, Tony Majah products. You guys want to get in that big old 50-pound cow, you got to get Tony Majah products. Got bunker spoons, mojos, outrodders, custom rods. He's got it all. Get in that 50-pound club, TonyMajahProducts.com. Also, Fisherman Magazine. Each week, Jim Hutchinson gives you the latest on what's coming up for the weekend ahead. And I'll even give you a little bit what's happening here in the Poconos. Be sure you check out thefisherman.com. And while you're there, pick yourself up subscription. $29.95 gets you 38 issues, gives you all the tips, tactics, and tackle you need to be a better fisherman. So I want to thank all those guys. We got a great show lined up. Got a real good friend of ours coming in. And the season is just right to start talking about some of the Fluke and the stripers and some things. So we have, talking about the Fisherman Magazine, we have Jim Hutchinson coming online. Let's bring in Jim on this one. Hey, Jim, how you doing, buddy?
Good, guys. How are you guys doing?
Oh, we are doing fantastic. Just trying to get out, spend a little bit of time in the water. You know, it's weather's been iffy, winds have been high, but we're still managing to get on a few fish. How about you?
Getting on a few, yes. Finding the time like anybody else. You know, the question I get every once in a while, what's the best time to fish for stripers? And I say, anytime you have free, right? So.
Exactly. Let's a couple of things I do want to talk about was let's start off talking about a little bit of fluke fishing, because I know it's kind of been hit or miss this year so far. Either guys go out, they're really on them, or they go out and they get absolutely nothing. So
you going to look at me when you say that, George?
I wasn't going to say that. How have you found it, Jim?
Personally, I have not gotten out enough.
Okay.
Since our opening on, what was it, the 22nd. The first day out, I took the kids, and we did pretty well, even though the water was pretty cold.
Okay.
I think this early time of year, you know, the early part of the season, the best thing to do is kind of be in the back bays, and especially in the shallow water. And you try to figure out, you know, especially if you have a fish finder that tells you what your water temperature is. If you're at a cooler water temperature, you're probably going to want to focus on some of that shallower water.
Gotcha.
And so some of the better catches we were getting the first couple of weeks, because the water was so cool, was in 4 to 6 feet of water. You know, you go up into North Jersey, the guys love to get out to the deep water spots on the Raritan, but really it's 10 to 12 feet of water back in the Navesink or the Shrewsbury. So I'm hearing the same thing. You know, I've talked to some guys who are saying I'm catching a lot of throwbacks. The early part of the season, Shark River in North Jersey was paved with them. Wow. And then I was also getting a lot of reports from some friends who are week fishing down in South Jersey, Atlantic and Cape May County, who are getting on the summer flounder, you know, 3 weeks before the opener.
Right.
So I think we're just waiting to come into things. I think I'm hoping to get out this week. I was hoping to get out this morning, but when the wind went offshore overnight, I was like, I'm going to hit the beach instead to see if I can find those bunker schools. But
sure,
yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
definitely flat water, definitely back bays and saltwater rivers. I think the early part of the season, that's your best bet.
Yeah,
sounds good. We got a couple folks saying hi to us. Chris Pitcher, Charles Piro says hello. Jay Batcha, Gen Wong says hello. Samantha and EJ Outdoors saying Beltsville's been a bust, but they're all saying hello, Jim.
Well, hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Recognize a couple of names in there, some pretty darn good fishermen.
Sure. Now let's go back to the flounder bite here a little bit. What are some of the tactics you've been using? You say the skinning water has been best. I know a lot of guys like the inlets and stuff. What's your favorite tactic? And, you know, if you head out tomorrow, what would you use?
If I could get out tomorrow, I'm going back to one of my favorite spots in Great Bay. That's where I keep my boat. And I like getting up on the some of the flatter water and the skinny water and fishing 4 to 5 feet of water. A couple of things that I like to do. I've switched almost entirely over to bucktails and jig heads.
Okay.
I tend to say bucktails when I'm thinking something a little bit bigger, and jig heads because I'll take really light tackle and try to get away with the smallest possible jig head that I can. So I'll still do the old standard with a teaser. It used to be when I grew up fishing behind Long Beach Island, there was always a sinker at the bottom.
Right.
Somewhere along the way, somebody said, "Why isn't there a hook in that thing?" So basically, that's really all it is your bottom rig is going to be the one that carries the weight with a teaser rig off the top. If you don't like to tie teasers, give a plug for the folks at Tsunami, because I found that the Tsunami teaser rigs are about my favorite at this point, because we all grew up with those Kale hooks and those rigs that Great Bay and all these other local guys used to make those little packages.
Sure.
So even if you just go with the standard package, I like to go with a light jig on the bottom and a light jig on the top, maybe a gulp on the top. On my bucktail, what I really like to do is I'll take squid strips, and I'll take the actual, go buy frozen heads of squid, and I'll strip them off in long triangular pendants. Cut the tail a little bit, it gives a little bit of a flutter, and then I soak them in finessence. Any kind of scent you can put it in, I think, is good, but I tend to gravitate towards finessence shedder oil, because I think when the blue claws especially start shedding, it's a great scent. So I'll use a little strip on that lower bucktail. But again, one of the things that's nice is to fish with a couple of friends, because he's fishing pink gulp, I'm fishing yellow gulp, and he's just fishing minnows and squid combinations. You figure out what's best, and then you switch.
Yeah, then you all switch up what's working.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
A couple more guys saying hello. We got Jack Lane. How you doing, Jack? And Art Begley joined us as well, saying hello. Hey, guys, thank you very much for watching. We really appreciate it. But the areas, the skinny water, what about all these guys out in the big inlets and stuff, Jim? Are they just, there's nothing there, or is that just a different game?
There's definitely fish there, obviously. We got our first, true doormat registered last week. It was a 10-pounder. I think it was 10.4 ounces. And a 10-pounder is that true trophy. That's the doormat. That fish came out, from what I understood, it came out from outside of Manasquan.
Okay.
I do know a couple of commercial buddies, because I grew up on Long Beach Island, and they're still dragging offshore, and one of them had a 14-pounder in his net recently. So there's still big fish out there. And I think maybe part of my thinking is that when those fish first come into the back bays and estuaries in the early spring, those first fish that arrive, they're going to move up into those rivers and bays, and that's where it's a nice target.
Gotcha.
It's easier fishing. It's a lot easier fishing. It's easier to control your drift, and you're right up along the sod banks, for example. There's nothing wrong with being in the inlets. I know some fish have been caught in the surf. If you focus on catching or looking for fluke in the surf, I don't go with a teaser in that sense, but I'll still go with the same setup with a jig head with pink or yellow gulp on that. And you just work around any of the jetties, the rock groins, if you could find them anymore. But work in those sloughs and just kind of move the jig along, and just let go with the lightest you possibly can. If you're going to try it in the surf, the lightest you can, that it just kind of rests on the bottom, so that almost when you lift up, the current takes it a little bit. Correct. So that's a fun way of spending the day at the beach with family, is just kind of walk down the beach a little bit and disappear for an hour or two, catch a couple of fluke.
And are you not using the teaser because it just washes around too much in the current?
Yeah, I've just found it's just easier just to stay, you're just focused on staying in control and in contact with that one jig head. Sometimes I've got a little ball jig with two teasers off it. The ball jig it's a chrome ball, and on the eye of the chrome ball, there's one teaser, and then I tie the teaser off to the top. I typically use that when it's heavier current or when I really want to cast. If I'm not getting a lot of action inside, I'll go to that ball jig, because I can get a lot more distance.
Fire it out there.
Yep, and then I'm just rolling it back. I'm just kind of pulling it back, just doing one of these things. With the jig head, I like it because it's more active. We talked about that, I think, when we fished together. It's just kind of that a little bit more fun, and a little bit, you're more active.
Right.
The other thing that I used to do before I really started focusing on using bucktails is, and I love the incoming tide. Just as the tide started coming in, and I would just do like a typical fluke rig, but in the surf, and instead of using a pyramid sinker, what a lot of times we're fishing for stripers in the surf, and you want that pyramid sinker to grab hold, I would use a bank sinker even while I was surf fishing, because I would cast it out to the bar, and then I would just roll it back. And on those baits, I might have a mullet, a frozen mullet, or a half a mullet that I saved from the season before. And I just pull slowly pull that rig back until all of a sudden I felt it rolled down the slope, and that's usually where I stopped right there. Because you can feel that with that rolling sinker, with that bank sinker, you know, that circular teardrop. When it hits that sandbar, it kind of rolls down. You can feel it give, and then I knew I was dropping it right in the position. So that's another really effective way of catching fluke in the surf. And you can prospect to figure out where those shoals and sloughs and drop offs.
Sure, that's a great tip.
Yeah,
I'm gonna write that one down. I think. Hey, Nick Canestra just joined us. Hey, Nick, how you doing today, buddy? Thank you again for tuning in. So that's some great tips on the fluke, and it's, you know, now's the time to get out there and get them. One of our other favorite seasons, Jim, is let's talk a little bit about the stripers. I think you said they're still running into the up into the Hudson stuff yet in the Raritan?
Yeah. The reason I'm laughing is I tend to think this time of year we also don't get too many fluke reports. First of all, with all this COVID-19, you know, we haven't been getting a lot of reports, so don't have a lot of people out there. So one of the reasons I think where the flounder bite might be a little quote unquote off is because not a lot of people are doing it.
That's a good point.
The other thing that affects people going out flounder fishing is that they're out chasing these stripers. You know, down in Cape May, it's all about the black drum right now, and a lot of guys are fishing for weak fish. Where Northern Ocean County up into Monmouth County, it's like we're going for stripers before these fish leave. Yeah, I do think that there's still fish that have been up the Hudson that have not dropped fully out. In fact, I had a friend last week was catching them in the western side of Raritan Bay. Some of them still had eggs because he had some sub 38 inchers that he brought home for his clients, and there were still eggs in a couple of them.
No kidding.
He didn't know if they were spawners that went up and skipped a year, or if they were even new arrivals that hadn't spawned yet. But I think that's the one big thing is we have these two converging populations of fish. You've got those Hudson River stock, and now we're getting the first arrivals of some really big Chesapeake fish. This is absolutely the time to go if you're looking for that personal best striper. And, you know, you mentioned the Tony Maja stuff. Guys are catching them on the spoons and the mojos, the spoons especially for catching big fish. And the mojos are just so effective. It's almost stupid fishing sometimes.
Yeah, it's almost not fair, you know.
Sometimes.
That's one of my favorites.
But I'll tell you what's really great right now is that now these fish are chasing the bunker. I said this morning, when I looked at the weather last night, I said, I'm not going fluke fishing. I want to go up to the beach at first light. It was beautiful, west wind, and it blows the ocean flat. And a lot of times the bunker will swim under the wind. So if you've got an offshore west wind blowing off and it's real calm, the bunker tend to get in a little bit closer to shore.
Right.
As far as I could see, there were just bunker north to south, but they just never came in too close. So I think if we get one of those situations where there's bunker get in and the bass will chase them up into the shoals, that's when you have gangbusters fishing. Doing the reports today, there was a bunker busting blitz somewhere in Seaside this past week. I'm not going to tell you where. Somewhere in Seaside, Island Beach. And that's where those big pencil poppers and those Polaris style poppers and even the swim shads, the storms and the tsunamis. But this is the time of year when we've got that and everything's converging at once. The Chesapeake fish coming and they're chasing bunker, and a lot of times you're getting them in real close. So again, I think that's because the striper bite is really on fire right now. I think that's really affecting people going out fluke fishing because they know these stripers are going to move out at some point, so they want to take advantage of it now.
Right.
Sure. And you see them, they're moving out front quite a bit now, Jim?
Yeah. We're going to continue to get a few waves of Chesapeake fish. I couldn't answer you what the Delaware stock does because there's that smaller, the spawning stock that goes up to Delaware.
Sure.
So I don't know where they fit into this mix. But we should be getting a few more waves of Chesapeake stripers for the next couple of weeks.
Nice.
There have been seasons in the past, depending on weather conditions, what the bunker do, what the water temperature is, where, all the way through July 4th and even a week after that. Do we get that this year? I don't know. Though I think the water temperature is still roughly around 60 degrees, ocean water temperature. So that really has a big impact on it as well. But
yeah,
it's a really, really good time to find somebody who, look, this pandemic hurt us all. I know it hurt the guides in Pennsylvania. It hurt all the tackle shops throughout. We finally have we finally have our for hire guys running again. The charter boats and the party boats. They're looking for customers at this point. So if you're thinking about saying, hey, I want to go catch that 50-pound striper now, I'm telling you, this is the time to do it in Northern Ocean County, Monmouth County. Out off the front beaches up there, and also in Raritan Bay as well. But this is definitely prime time.
Yeah, jump on those boats, help them guys out. Support your local guides. That's always a plus. Luke, what's this say? Luke, thanks guys for the good info. Got to go, but thanks again. Well, thank you for tuning in. That's from YouTube. So appreciate you guys all watching on YouTube as well. So Jim, without talking about where the stripers are, and it's there's some, I won't say they're unpredictable because it's kind of the same spots year after year, the Raritan and whatnot, and you just waiting for them to come up front. But you guys have been out satellite tagging some to try to find out where do they really go. I mean, we don't know what happens when they come out of the spawn. So why don't you touch a little bit on your 3R program with the magazine?
Yeah, well, this is actually Mike Caruso is the publisher, owner of the Fisherman Magazine, and he's an advisor for a company called Gray Fish Tag Research in Florida. And anybody who's ever traveled to Florida or have seen any of the mounts in somebody's home, you see the Gray taxidermy mounts. Gray has been, I think, the oldest taxidermy business in the world. But Gray is now they've gotten away from skin mounts, they're doing fiberglass mounts. But in the last bunch of years, they started a nonprofit research group called Gray Fish Tag Research. That's their C3 nonprofit. So they've started putting in the spaghetti tags, the green tags. I wanted to see if I had one here. We each one of these cards comes with a little spaghetti tag, a green streamer tag, and they've been getting these to charter captains all over the world to put these green spaghetti tags in different fish.
Right.
And then they started a satellite program where they were putting these pricey $5,000 satellites in big blue marlin and rooster fish in Costa Rica. Well, Mike is sitting there at one of the advisory meetings and listening to all these exotic species, and he says, "Hey, what about striped bass? I'd like to put one in a striped bass." So last year, with the help and support of Navionics, the charting folks, and Gray Fish Tag Research, and some other great donations, we were able to put two of these pricey satellite tags in two post-spawn Hudson stripers last May 21st, 2019. And we had no idea what would happen. We just knew we wanted to tag fish as they were post-spawn. We set 34 inches as the benchmark minimum. We had 134-inch and 142-inch striper. And really, I joke around saying it was just one of our piney ideas to say, "Oh, stick something in here, see what happens." I don't know, hold my beer, right? We had no idea what was going to happen with these stripers carrying a satellite tag for 5 months. And at the end of 5 months, it discharges from the fish, floats to the surface, and then starts feeding an Argos satellite. And then the data starts trickling in. Well, if you can get these tags back, which is like a needle in a haystack, right, the researchers can get inside and get all the information. It stores light information, temperature data, pressure, so it knows everything. Well, lo and behold, we got both tags back. One washed up on the beach in Massachusetts. Second tag in October washed up on the beach of Asbury Park. And lo and behold, what we discovered is these two fish, anyway, both of them, when they were finished with their spawn and they left, they spent the entire summer in the canyons, like way offshore. Yeah, it was amazing. And they weren't really deep. It wasn't like 30 fathoms or anything. They were swimming between 50 and 85 feet. But they stayed out there the whole time, came back up into New England. One tag actually came undone prematurely. The other tag followed that striper as it went up Nantucket Shoals, came inside of state waters only for a couple of weeks, I think, at the most. And then it was outside the 3-mile line again and lost her tag just about where she came out of the Hudson in May when we first did it. So anyway, this year that's when we started the 3R campaign, because we wanted to figure out a way, we wanted to bring the readers involved. And we had started a 3R campaign to release properly, reduce mortality, and rebuild striped bass, because we know that the stock assessment's down, striped bass are down. Our thought was we didn't have a lot of data, so if we could throw some more data out there that maybe somebody can use, that's great. We just wanted to see what would happen. But we took that decal that we had done just because we wanted to, go into the 3R campaign and said, why don't we make decals, and we'll offer them to people who give $10, $10 to the program, you become the sponsor. Well, that kind of steamrolled. We had different fishing clubs like the Hudson River Fishermen's Association, the Berkeley Striper Club in New Jersey came in with really healthy donations of $500, $1,000 or more.
Wow.
We had one individual, just a private angler, Chuck Manning, and his friend Dave Glassberg, they came in with $10,000 because they believed in this project. And now we've got Navionics back again. The folks from Tsunami Tackle are involved. AFW High Seas out there in Pennsylvania. The Recreational Fishing Alliance. Lo and behold, we ended up with over $25,000, close to 30 grand. So we're thinking we're going to have maybe 6 of these satellite tags this year. Then the COVID hits. Everything's shut down. We don't know if we're going to be able to fish with anybody. We couldn't get the tags because they were in Washington State, which was in complete shutdown. So we really were thinking that this program was going to fall apart this year. We did get 2 tags. Washington was slowly reopening. The folks at Gray Fish Tag got on the phone and said, we need those tags. And we got 2. So I spent the last 2 weeks in 2 separate trips. We tagged a 46-inch fish 2 weeks ago. And last week we tagged a 45 3/4-inch fish. We were looking for a 50. And it's kind of a funny story. I've got it coming out in the July edition of the Fisherman Magazine, but I didn't want to press our luck, so we got those 46-inch fish, and we're real happy. We're also supposed to get another 2 tags coming up, maybe in the next week or so. So that's why I said before, I'm still optimistic that those fish are dropping out of the Hudson, because I'm still working on getting reports. I want to get back up there to the lower Manhattan area, right off of Statue of Liberty, which is where we tagged the 2 fish last year. So we're hoping to get back up there maybe in a week, maybe in 2. And but my friends told me this week they were on some good fish in lower Manhattan this past week. So those fish are coming out now too.
And you put the green tags in too, not just the satellites. So, if the guys catch the tag, you can check some migration as well.
Correct. We I have to log all this information, so I've had it sitting on my desk the last couple of days. We tagged every fish, just about every fish we caught in the last 2 weeks with the green spaghetti tags. But yeah, those 2 big fish that are carrying the satellite tags on the port side, on the starboard side of the dorsal, we also put the spaghetti tags. Okay. So we hope to get the satellite tags back in 5 months. 5 years from now, somebody's going to report that green tag where they caught that fish, who knows where, and that'll give us something else. It'll be really nice to know of those 2 fish that we tagged last year, which we called Liberty and Freedom, because of where we were fishing. I would love to get a tag return on one of those fish in the next couple of years too, just to hear back from them again,
Yeah. What do you think they're feeding on if they're running out to the canyons and stuff like that? What are they chasing? I mean, they're the bunker here, but what are they feeding on out there?
We don't know. It's so bizarre that they're out there. The only thing that I could possibly think, because we talk about the bunkers are thick, thick inshore and offshore. I don't know if it's bait that drives them out there or drove these 2. We can't say that we found a pattern. One is how's it go? One's an anomaly, 2 is a coincidence, 3 is a pattern.
Sure.
So we don't know what the next 2 are going to do yet. But the only thing that I could possibly guess would be squid. One of the things that would really be nice if we can get some type of overlay from NOAA, the federal folks, if we can look at the water temperatures, the temperature at that time, if there's any way to conduct any type of studies to figure out what bait's out there as well, maybe that's something we can try to plot. One of the genesis of this program, I mentioned Mike sitting in this room with the Gray Fish Tag folks, but folks who watch Wicked Tuna, Captain Dave Marciano of Hard Merchandise, he's one of the advisors as well. And it was Dave and Mike creating a problem over in the corner of the room. Gray's having this meeting, and they're like, "What are you guys talking about?" And they said, "We're talking about striped bass. We want to put these tags in stripers." And Marciano says there's times where he's bluefin fishing off of George's, way offshore in New England. And he says, I can't get away from the stripers. So he has said for years that those stripers are way offshore in those locations where they're bluefin fishing. And, that would really be cool if we can maybe get some type of allowance to go fishing for stripers outside of 3 miles.
Sure.
Go 20 miles, 25 miles out with Marciano. And so we can tag one of those fish out there. Absolutely. We just need somebody to tell us it's okay.
Yeah, right. You don't want to push your luck on that one. I'd say John Descaro said, hello, John. Yeah. He says, Beltsville is hit or miss. Yes, it is. That is a tough lake to fish. We actually had Jim out there last year, but we managed to get him on a couple fish. Yep. I think nobody else was catching fish that day. I think we had Tony out there using those new casting mojos of his, and they certainly scored. So that was a really good day. Mary, hello. Good to see you. So thanks for joining. And Charles Piro says the same thing. He's it's more miss than hit, but you can get some nice fish out of there. Yeah, it's one of those tough lakes, but that's part of the challenge we really enjoy.
A lot of time required.
Yeah. So that's some good information on the understanding where they go. And that kind of brings up, hey, Ryan Sturgis, thanks for joining us. Appreciate that, buddy.
Hello.
Just because you might know where they are. Us that do a lot of media work, we're heavy into social media. We do a lot of things. Wanted to touch on like spot burning. I mean, just because you put a tag in it doesn't mean, you're going to be able to spot burn these fish. I mean, you don't know where they are. They move all the time. They're chasing bait. What are some of your feelings on how us in the media can better manage, spot burning?
It's a sensitive topic. Let me go back to the striper for a second, because when we first put these satellite tags in, we got a lot of heat from people saying, "Oh, great! Now people are going to use their computer and follow these stripers. Are going to know where they are." And I was like, "Wow, I didn't think about that." I was like, "No, they can't, because they don't feed the satellite until they hit the surface. It's like those great whites. They only ping when they're swimming up top with a dorsal fin. So we can't track them until later on." It's something of, the Fisherman Magazine's been around for 50 years. I started at the magazine in 2002. And in 2002, I don't even think spot burning was a term. And that's what we did. The magazine always was a spot burner. We still have a regular hotspot that gives lat-lon numbers, we give positions. We've always done that. But I think with social media coming along the way, that spot burning, it really became sensitive.
Right.
At the magazine, I'm really cautious about it. I get hit sometimes on my video forecast for spot burning. I got hit really hard. I got into this debate with somebody, and it was crazy because it was February, and there were a couple of people going up to the beach in Belmar in February catching some stripers. And I said, guys are catching stripers on the beach in Belmar in February. And the guy said, "How dare you burn a spot?" I said, "Belmar is a town. That's not a spot."
Sure.
And I don't think I'm going to send a lot of people up to the beach in Belmar in February to go catch fish. So I have some really good friends who are surfcasters. We all surfcast together. And I've always asked them from time to time, am I doing a bad thing? It's like, if you're given towns and general locations, you say Northern Ocean County, down in Cape May County, for example, or up at Sandy Hook, you're really not burning a spot. When you're burning a spot, it's when you're saying, down at 8th Street, the south side of that rock groin, incoming tide with about an hour to go, that's the spot where you want to be. You're doing stuff like that and leaving a popcorn trail, that's when people get really sensitive. And it's not just the sensitivity from people, because it's a matter of respect. There are people that work their butts off to find a body of fish and to find a particular spot, and you want to have a little bit of respect for those people when you're doing that. So I've tried to figure out how to balance both, how to be able to tell people where to go and catch fish, and not being in a situation where I'm broadcasting to say, this beach, this street, this jetty, this whatever is the spot where you want to be, because it's really not fair. It's not fair to those people that are on it. So it's the funny thing for me is, and I actually really love this. When the fall comes, I'm fishing just about every day. Because I'm 10 minutes from the beach in Bay Head, but I'll fish from Bay Head down to Seaside. I'll chase them up to Belmar or Asbury Park, wherever the fish are. But it's funny, I went down to this one beach location near me one day last fall, and I bumped into this guy, and he looks at me and goes, "You're Jim from the magazine, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." We got to talking, really nice guy. We got to talking about the bite here and what he's throwing, what I'm throwing. We just had a nice conversation. He goes, "Yeah, the tide's right for this." And I was like, "Yeah, I figured." I was like, "Well, good luck." And as I turned to walk away, he said, "You're not going to talk about this spot, are you?" And I said, "No, I'm not going to talk about this spot." And I wouldn't. It's there's certain boundaries. You got to push it, but I try not to cross it because it's disrespectful.
Sure. No, we definitely get that. And Jim, I think no matter how hard you try, we're always going to have Clarence, right?
I like Clarence.
So my feeling is, no Clarence. That's we gotta be real about this, guys. We're trying to help everyone here. We're not trying to spot burn. And up here in the Poconos, there's a couple lakes here with the big stripers, and you don't need me to tell you where they're at. But we try to give you some tips on how to get them. We try to educate people to go out on your own. Use these strategies. I did the seminar at the Philly Fishing Show with you guys and kind of told you roughly how I go about finding them. Well, that's not spot burning. That's trying to, educate people on how to go look for them.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's spot burning, but geez, I get some scathing emails sometimes from people that it just is what it is. I think there's always going to be a Clarence. There's somebody that's a weekend warrior. He's on the keyboard and you're just going to get it no matter how hard you try to be sensitive.
That's
to
right.
it.
Yep.
Well, we use belt spills in a perfect example. I mean, you and I could talk about it and say, hey, there's a good striper bite on Beltsville, right? And you're going to have a handful of guys saying, don't say that. That's my lake. I don't want you sending people. But what you're not doing is saying, you're not saying within 100 yards of the dam, right around 11 a.m., that's where you want to be. And you want to be right on that south side, whatever it might be.
Right.
That's that territory where you're getting into. It's sort of like me saying the beach of Belmar. Belmar's miles and miles long. I'm not giving the jetty or a street. Same thing with Beltsville. We're never going to make everybody happy, George.
No.
As long as we both have to figure out, and I think we've both done that, figure out where that line is that we don't want to cross. And I've crossed it before. And I've crossed it and apologized for it and said, I felt bad. I don't want to do that. Leaving that popcorn trail, and I was like, I don't want to do that.
Well, unfortunately, the lakes, they're so much smaller than the ocean. The fish are migrating up the coast, so they do migrate. If you watch my seminar, they migrate in the shallows and the deeper water, depending on how the season's going. But I've done videos already, and you see like the dam in the background. They know exactly where you are.
Sure.
And I went back like the following week, and there was 10 guys standing right where I was.
Wouldn't even be able to fish.
So I'm like, geez, I just spot burned myself on that one. But it happens. But I don't know what to do. You're at a cross between educating people on how to go about catching things, giving them the techniques, but you're not trying to actually, like you said, go down right off of 8th Street.
It's such a fine line.
It is. So,
and there's like another aspect to it. I mean, you could spot burn an actual spot, but then you can burn access to a spot too. In some of these smaller locations, there might only be access for a couple of vehicles to park. That spot gets out. It's really good. You get cars piling in there way more in excess than it can handle. Litter goes everywhere, and before you know it, the spot's just gone. And that's another type of spot burning.
Josh, I think that's probably the better example of why it's bad. In my position, because it's that, and I tend to go towards the side of saying it's out of respect for that guy who found it. But for the most part, you're absolutely right. It's sort of like during this whole COVID-19 crisis, I was getting calls all the time. Where can I go? What beach can I go? And I was like, I can't tell you.
Sure.
Like, all I can tell you is there are fish there and you can find access. But I was getting hammered, and I was like, I can't. I said, I just can't right now, because the people that are going out using Google Earth or whatever method. I mean, I spent one day just driving up the Matitaconk River, town to town, trying to find where I can get access for trout fishing. These are the things you got to do. We're pointing you in the right direction, but COVID-19 was a perfect example, because if too many people were in a spot, they just came in and shut the whole place down.
Yeah, sure.
And Josh, that's a great example, because if people are parking on private property or you're leaving trash behind, we're just going to get shut out of it. So,
Jim, we got a question for you. Jay Batcha wants to know, how far up the Hudson River do you think the Fluke go?
Up the Hudson River? That's a great question. How far up do I think they go? I certainly don't think personally that they go up any farther than the George Washington Bridge. I've always felt that they never went up past Lower Manhattan, because I do know you can catch fluke right off the Statue of Liberty. We've caught some good sized fluke inside New York Harbor, in the lower New York Bay off of Staten Island. But if I were to just pinpoint a guess, I would say no farther than George Washington Bridge. But I have no idea. It's a really good question.
No, that was a great answer. I hope that answers your question there, Jay. Thank you very much for asking. Gen Wallen says exactly, we're talking about spot burning, because people put the time and work into it. You don't want to have them, give it away to somebody else, and somebody's really put all the work into trying to find that spot. So definitely,
if there's anybody that has a few good spots to share and won't, it's Jen.
That's a good point.
Jen,
all right, Jim, any other thoughts today for any of the cop topics? Fluking, stripers, spot burning. Any closing thoughts?
My only closing thoughts would be these to summarize. If you're looking to get a trophy striped bass, and it's going to be catch and release, because you're going to be releasing your giant fish right now. Now's the time to go after that fish of a lifetime. I've still got 50 as my. I got to get 50 one of these days. The guy I was fishing with the last couple of weeks, he kept saying, I got to get your 50. I was like, we were catching 40-pound stripers. I was like, I'm not dissatisfied. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But now's the time to catch striped bass. And I think that as far as that fluke bite, just stick with it. I think things are going to turn on. I think that, I think the water temperature going up a few degrees, it's going to get things going. We did get some better reports, especially in Atlantic and Cape May County this week. That weak fish bite, if folks go down to South Jersey, if you're coming from Pennsylvania or you're listening from wherever, if you want to get on the weak fish, now's the time to do it from some of those Atlantic and Cape May County jetties. Down into Cape May, the jetties that are along throughout Cape May County. Regrettably, they're doing some work on the 8th Street jetty there in Avalon. So that's always been a good spot, but right now I think that's shut down. But Atlantic City's been really on fire as well. And the only other thing that I'd say is if you've never caught one of these giant black drum, take advantage of that when you can. That May and June bite for black drum is phenomenal. And you can put the boots or they'll put the boots to you, 60, 70, 80-pound black drum. And, the only thing that I say is I just prefer, as far as the eating styles, something around 30 pounds or more. So you can catch and release giant drum till your arms are weary. But
it's a good problem to have.
Yeah. Take advantage of that bite. There's something that George, you and I talked about when the three of us fished together earlier this winter. Is bucket lists. Create bucket lists, and you don't have to use that term, but identify. Here in the state of New Jersey, in particular, we have some really unbelievable opportunities. You and I have talked about muskie. We've got walleye. I know you love to fish for walleye, Josh, and we have some good walleye fishing places in New Jersey. Great, tasty freshwater fish. Yep. But
absolutely.
If you're thinking about Jersey fishing, don't always just focus on the fluke and the striped bass. There are some great opportunities, and I think we should all just try to focus on. Let's try something different from time to time and take advantage of that. I'm one. I should be leading by example, and I don't. And I want to get out and do that more.
Maybe we can do another show later on, Jim. Talk about like the drum and the tog and all those other bottom feeding fish that are really good. Good sport fish and some good eating fish as well. Well,
as soon as when the sheep's head come back in my little area, I'll let you know. Maybe we can get on some of those sheep's head too.
Yeah.
Learn some really
cool,
really valuable tactics I learned from one of the captains down in South Jersey, Dan Schaefer. So I want to apply more of those tactics to my backwaters this year. So see what happens.
Sure. Let's do that. Well, Jim, I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing, your knowledge and wisdom. Such a great resource. Why don't you hang around a little bit, watch the rest of the show, and we'll catch up with you in a little bit, okay? So just hang tight.
Sounds good. Jim. Thank you, guys. Good to see you, Josh.
All righty. That was great. I love talking with Jim. He's always so knowledgeable.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And he's always got like I said, without spot burning, he'll get you on fish, that's for sure. So, well, talking about fish and trophies, that brings up our trophy board for this week. So what do we got on tap? Let's see. We got Chris Pitcher. He was out at Island Beach State Park throwing some bunker, getting into some stripers out front. Like we were just talking about doing the surf fishing for them. There's some nice striper out there as well. Yep. Good friend Tom Gilmore was out in White Lake over in New Jersey, getting us some real nice bass. We've been talking about the bass season. They're coming off a spawn now, so they're out there getting a little bit active.
Tom's a great guy too.
Yeah, Tom is. Even his wife Courtney was out there scoring. They're out there in the kayaks having some fun, getting a bunch of bass. Doesn't get better than that. I know I got to get my kayak out. This wind ever dies down. Yeah. That's the key right there. Art Begley. Yes, Art, I seen your comment that you caught a big old muskie in Beltsville. And yes,
wow,
he was out there actually striper fishing with some big, large baits. And this toothy critter grabbed a hold of his bait. And
that is wild.
That is wild. We fish Beltsville all the time, and I've never seen a muskie like that.
No, there's not a whole lot of them.
I think Art got the only one, Art, so that's the one we got. But talking about muskie too, Ryan Sturgis was out in the Delaware River, and he got us some muskie as well. So the muskie bite is really on, guys. That's a really good stuff. Nice fish.
Very nice.
Local favorite Eric Goodstall out on the bass as well. So Eric's out getting some nice fish. He's been hitting those ponds and some of the backwaters where these fish are.
How dark that fish is. It must have been sitting shallow for a while.
Yeah, very pretty fish though.
Oh yeah.
And even this guy, Josh, got into some walleye.
Wow, look at that guy.
Now you've been getting them really pretty regular this past week. You got into a couple of them.
Yeah, it's been good. It's I've been poking around trying to figure them out for a while, and with a whole lot of misses.
Yeah.
And finally been starting to put some puzzle pieces together, and it feels good. And I've been getting them, I won't say consistently, but better than I ever have before. So,
and last week you got me on my PB walleye too. So I'm not going to share that pick, but maybe later we'll see. All right. So that ends up our trophy board for this week. We are also going to get into the trivia giveaway. Now this week, guys, we got another one of these great Tony Maja face buffs. Great for the times, but when the fishing gets hot and the sun's out there, this is a good protection to keep that wind and sun off your face. Tony Maja is going to send this out to you. The first person that can answer the trivia question for this week. And the question is, some fish have strange meanings of their names. The name halibut means what? Holy flatfish, bottom demon, or sea ghost? The first person to give me the right answer is going to win this Tony Maja buff.
George, I have no idea.
I stumped Josh.
I can take a guess, but
come on, guys.
I'm not sure.
First person that gives me the right answer is going to win this great buff. Samantha? No, sorry. Art? Nope, sorry, buddy. Again? Nope, I'm sorry. Come on, I got to get an answer here. We got to give this away today. There's only one left, guys. Come on, it's multiple choice here. Give me the right answer. I know you get it wrong each week, Sammy. That's okay. Jay, nope. Come on.
Yeah.
Samantha got it. Holy flatfish. Yeah, believe it or not. The reason is it was a fish that they actually ate on holy days. So it's if you look up the meaning of halibut, it means holy flatfish. So it's kind of a strange thing. I stumped you. That's
yeah,
good.
I had no idea. That's awesome. Now I know.
So yeah, Samantha, we'll get this out to you. Thank you very much. And that's kind of going to wrap up this show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, special thanks to Tim Keebler and Finn Seeker River Guide Service. Be sure you give Tim a call, 215-262-4811, and get that trip booked right now. Also, Tony Maja Products, the Fisherman Magazine. Be sure you check these guys out. And don't forget to keep sending us those pics. You can email them to me at PoconoGeorge@outlook.com, or you can hit me up here at Facebook or leave a comment on YouTube as well. So that's going to wrap things up, guys. I'll say good night, Josh.
It's good being here. Have a good night.
Yeah, we'll see you next week. Thank you very much.